Like, here's the thing, dashing and dodge rolling, there's really no difference. The only difference is how much iframes they give it and how much recovery they give it. So don't get fooled because it's a dash or because it's a roll. It doesn't have anything to do with how it plays. How it plays is going to be determined by the time it takes to dodge, the distance the dodge travels, and the iframe it gives. So the presentation of the dodge itself is not relevant to the gameplay. We're going to watch a lot of this in slower motion. For the record, no one other than From Software has been able to nail the From Software genre. So far, there's not a Souls-like clone that was or is at the level of an actual Souls game. And so this looks like it could be one of the first ones to do it. Obviously, this is Lord of the Fallen. The first Lord of the Fallen that was made was really badly received. I have not played it myself, but I heard some pretty bad things about the first one. Oh, here we go. But before we delve into that, this one, to be clear, is not even made by the same studio. So the studio that made the original Lord of the Fallen got another studio, another branch to make this. So this is made entirely from scratch by another studio. The only thing that transferred over is the IP. And so for the people who are worried that this is going to be like the first one, or that it's going to be influenced by the first one because the first one was bad, this is just not even comparable because it's not even made by the same developers. It's a reboot entirely, not even made by the same people. So the only thing that transfers over is the IP. Now, as to why they transferred over the IP when everything changed, I think that's a mistake personally. I think marketing wise they should have started from scratch, just give it a new name, even if the direction is the same. But that's just my opinion. Let's take a look at the gameplay. Okay, well, we do see that dodge rolling is definitely coming back here, but it looks like a dodge roll while unlocked. Like, we've seen this in some games, like Bloodborne, for instance. The dodge roll happens when you're locked off, and when you're locked on, you do the dash, right? But here it looks like the character is locked off because the character doesn't turn back around when the dodge is finished. Like, it stays in the same direction. And then when locked on, you can see it's clearly locked on here. The dash happens to the side like this, and the character keeps the whole way. So far, the dash animation, it looks pretty lengthy. It looks very similar to Bloodborne, actually. It looks like they really have taken inspiration from Bloodborne. They might even have copied like the distance and perhaps even the frames for the dodge. It's going to be hard to tell what kind of iframes we're looking at just by looking at this trailer, but it definitely seems like the dodges are very similar, like length and frame wise, to Bloodborne. I like the dodge animation. Hope future games adopt that instead of just rolling. Yeah, personally, it's not that I mind the aesthetic of rolling a lot. It's just that I found, like, I forgot about it. Once you play the game, you don't really think about it. But I found that when I first got introduced to Souls, I thought that rolling was a bit silly. Like, rolling for dodging. Yeah, like, it feels like dashing is more aesthetically pleasing. Maybe that's just a personal thing, but that's how I feel about rolling versus dashing. I think dashing is more aesthetically pleasing than rolling. But like I said in the beginning here, the presentation, the visual presentation of the dodge itself is not really relevant. What's relevant is how is the length of the dodge, like how far it travels, how much iframes it has, you know, that sort of things. That's what's going to affect the dodge and how it plays. It's not the visual presentation or the animation they gave it. That's just irrelevant. But it's cool when you have a presentation that looks cool to you and looks immersive, of course. So we get a look at some weapons. Let's take a look at some of the weapons we see. First of all, environment looks gorgeous. I don't need to mention it. It looks like he has 2 scimitar. Wonder if we're going to see some power stancing. I think it's likely we are going to see that. Just the way they're sprinting, I don't think like that's an NPC. That's probably a player, so we're probably looking at some co-op in that shot as well. Like this is likely confirmation of multiplayer, but I think it was already confirmed that there's PvP and invasion in that game and co-op. So here, you know what that reminds me of? Like the Dragon Covenant in Dark Souls 1, where you transform into a dragon. But like this looks like a wolf, so you transform into the Berserk character. Yeah, it looks like a werewolf transformation. I'm quite interested to see what type of like weird bestial transformation we get in this. I would say this is probably confirmation that we're gonna get some sort of bestial transformation or bestial forms as a player. So that's another feature that I really like, and mixes it up with like different type of weapons and, you know, gameplay features. It's always nice to have like a different bestial form, because it usually opens up like different playstyles. So it has like a legitimate impact on gameplay. It's not visual most of the time. Although we don't know exactly how it's going to play out here, but it opens up the possibility for some nice variation. You know what that reminds me of? The Pontiff Curved Sword weapon art. Let's take a look at that in slow motion. Dude, it looks like the Pontiff Curved Sword weapon art, dude. Obviously different visual presentation, but like timing wise, it sure looks like it. This looks like some sort of checkpoint to me. Could be wrong on this, but that looks like your equivalent of bonfires. And so far this is looking good, honestly. The dash here is not looking like it's over the top. I kind of like it. Like we get a good look at a dash in this shot. Like it doesn't look too lengthy. Another look at a dash in the next one. Oh, we get a look at 2 dashes here. So we can kind of see like what's the recovery here. Interesting. So 1 dash, 2 dash. Let's watch this in real time. Okay, there's like... I don't know if there's much of a delay. I know Steel told me he thinks there's a delay between the dashes. I don't know if I see it. I don't know if I see much of a delay, to be honest. Maybe a little bit. Hard to tell. 1, 2, 3. Oh, there's 3 actually. Let's take a look. Yeah, there's not much of a delay if you ask me. It's like quick step. Yeah, it feels similar timing wise to like a quick step spam, which is not necessarily a good thing. Like objectively speaking, the longer the delay between the dodges, I mean, obviously to an extent where you don't wait like 2 minutes between dodge, but like a long delay between dodges to prevent spamming is usually a good thing. When you can dodge multiple times in a row, it's usually a bad thing. So let's keep that in mind here. It looks like the delay between the dodges is pretty short from my point of view. You tell me, guys, how do you feel about this dodge timing? The spam of dodges in that sequence. Nice and quick. Loadout step alarm. Did you notice a magnet effect? It's funny, I love that people call it a magnet effect. I will take full credit for canning the name the magnet effect. That's how I would describe it. But so far, I don't see anything that's like out of the ordinary of like a normal lock-on. There's a lot of shot, like when you see like the lock-on taking place, the tracking is going to be toward the lock-on, so it's going to be hard to see if there's that magnet effect from a trailer where we don't see like a series of attack. Like so far, I'm not seeing anything of the sort. So for those wondering, the magnet effect is like when the attack you're doing has a certain amount of range to it, right? But the magnet effect will compensate for that range. So like you could attack out of range and then your character will artificially lunge forward to reach its target. It's like a thing that most games have, like, you know, your God of War, your Assassin's Creed. Like they make their combat really bad and bland by removing spacing from their game, where your lock-on will compensate for your lack of spacing by traveling the extra distance to reach the target. From software games don't do that. From software games, there's always a specific length and a specific range to your weapon's attack. And so that's why the combat that's one of the many reasons why in From Software games, the combat looks so much tighter than other games. So it's hard to see in this trailer if we get that bad effect that most AAA games have that From Software doesn't. That would make or break the combat for most people, if I'm being honest. If that magnet effect, that we call it magnet effect, is present, let's try to take a look for it, if we can find a sequence for it to be noticeable. If it has that would probably make the combat bad. But it's hard to say if it has it or not from this particular trailer, because the sequences happen so quickly. And you don't see like sustained gameplay over like one enemy. And also all these shots are like very close range. Like when the player attacks, he's already like very close range. And so it's hard to tell if the spacing varies depending like that here. It's hard to tell if this is the range of the attack itself or if the lock-on gives it a little extra. It's difficult to say from these shots. Well, I'll tell you one thing though. Like if we take a look at this here, which looks like an Ash of War, right? This particular shot, let's slow it down. I tell you what, like this particular shot, like you charge an attack, right? And then boom, you do it. There's no forward momentum whatsoever in this. So if anything, we know for sure that not all attacks would have that, at least. Like if this is an indication, like this character is standing completely in place while doing this. Let's watch it in slow motion. Standing still, releasing. There's no like change in forward momentum. But to be fair, that's more relevant for like normal melee attacks, which, like I said, I'm not really seeing any shots that would indicate one or the other from this whole trailer. And so it's hard to tell from watching this if there's a magnet effect or not. I'll say it again, it would make or break the combat. But like given like this particular sequence, you can see the tracking, but like the magnet effect is not necessarily tracking. Tracking from side to side, Souls games have that too. The magnet effect is the compensation of range, where the range gets increased when the target gets further, whereas it's supposed to have a precise range and doesn't matter if you're locked on or not. Let's look for other things than the magnet effect. There's a very fine line with good combat, but you know, we're being very critical. So far, there's nothing that seems to indicate bad combat. So far, it actually looks like a Souls game combat-wise. And so I'm getting good vibes from this trailer, but I'm cautious as well because I know it can easily be ruined by just a few frames off, or like if it tracks a little too much, or if it has the magnet effect. Like the balance is it's a very fine line between good combat and bad combat. But so far, we have to be honest with what we're seeing. So far, I'm not seeing any red flags other than the dodges that looks like it could be too much. So let's be honest, the dodges that are too much is also a flaw that From Software games have. So it's not like this is like a new flaw that's going to be introduced. No. Bloodborne has this problem. Elden Ring has this problem. I mean, quite frankly, most Souls games have some sort of dodge issues where there's too much iframes. So it's not like you guys are not used to this. It would be nice if the dodges don't have too much iframe for the first time. But we're gonna wait and see. Like I said, it's always hard to judge like the amount of iframes you're seeing just by watching something. You would need to play it to feel it. Let's take a look at this attack sequence. Some little spin to win with both weapons. So this attack pattern here encompasses both weapons. So you're spinning and you're attacking with two hatchets, it seems. It's hard to tell which kind of weapon. Whoops. Hard to tell what kind of weapon this is from the motion blur. And also I think this trailer is in 30 FPS, but it looks like two axes and it looks like you're spinning with both. So I think that would mean that there's some sort of power stance going on here. I think the important thing to take away from that sequence is that there is a confirmation of some sort of moveset that encompasses both weapons. To me, it looks like an axe. Like, see? It looks like an axe to me. But whatever, it's not important. Yeah, that looks like some sort of power stance moveset or an Ash of War or weapon art that encompasses both weapons. So there's definitely going to be moves that are tied to using both of your weapons. So that's good. I think we can fairly confidently say that this is confirmation of some sort of power stancing system, or that there's going to be dual weapons. So that's good. These draw distances, you guys are not used to having draw distances like that in your Souls game. I'll tell you that much. Wow, the draw distance here. Yeah, I'm modding Skyrim at the moment. Like, modding Skyrim makes you appreciate how modern games have so much better LODs. Like the resolution, the level of detail for the distant objects. It's something you don't appreciate until you get to try to make a good LOD, like using mods yourself for games. And like how old games all have like really bad LODs. That's definitely something modern games are getting a lot better at. It's very, very pleasant to play a game that has a good LOD, honestly. Yeah, UE5 is pretty wild, definitely. Oh, wow, I just noticed. Look at that spell. That spell looks interesting. Oh, also, I just noticed that too. Damn, there's a lot packed in. Like, there's a lot of quick sequence here. We get to take a look at the block recoil in that frame. Like, how much recoil we get. Let's take a look at the recoil here. Knockback. It looks like pretty much similar to like when you take a massive blow. Like, there's many types of recoil for like getting attacked on the shield. There's like the big one. Once you when a boss attacks, like does a big attack on you, you get some massive recoil and you get knocked back a little bit. It's like that in Elden Ring, where you even do like a backward flip or something once you take like a massive attack on a shield. And then there's the small attacks, which have a much smaller recoil effect. But here it looks like this is the type of like massive recoil you would get from taking a massive blow on your shield. The game releases in October, so we're probably gonna get like some actual gameplay, like with the HUD and everything. We're probably gonna get to see that before launch. We're gonna appreciate this first look at the gameplay here in the trailer, but I can't wait to see actual hands-on footage, like someone playing the game. That's gonna give us a better idea for all these mechanics. But for now, this trailer is looking fantastic so far, I would say. Being cautiously optimistic, I'm seeing a lot of good things in this. Like things that we take for granted in Souls games that we should not take for granted in any other game. But this here, it looks like the whole package here, it's looking like it's taking a lot of cues from Souls, but like to a T. And that's likely going to be a good thing, I think. You hope there's PvP. I'm pretty sure it's been confirmed. We're going to take a look at some articles after watching this trailer. See if we can... Look at that beautiful hammer. I like hammers like that. Oh, dude, did you notice? Look at the bunk on the floor. That's just some animators, some animator stuff, like giving the hammer some oomph to it. Like, look at the double like bunk once it hits the floor. Like it hits so hard that the hammer bounces off the floor and then bounces back on the ground. As someone who like studied in animation, this is something I can absolutely appreciate. Look at the boom, dong, dong. It's very subtle, but that's what it's all about, man. That's why animations look fluid and look good. It's that sort of thing. It's these little details like that. That's what makes the whole difference. You know, guys, I'll let you in on something. You know, people say graphics don't make games, and it's actually correct. Graphics don't make games, but you know what breaks games? Bad animations break games. A game will always feel clunky and dated or bad when the animations are not fluid and the animations are clunky. You can have bad graphics in a game, but you cannot have bad animations. A game with bad animations is going to feel bad to play. So animations are super important, down to the little details like we're seeing here. And so every time you take a look at a game that has bad graphic, you can sort of see the game redeem itself through animations or not. But yeah, I really appreciate this particular hammer recoil here. Little detail, you know, little tiny detail that's kind of important, even if it's just a little thing. Just indicates that a lot of love has been put into these animations. Okay, that's a jump. Let's see here. That's a jump. There's definitely a jump motion. So there is some sort of jump. Now, when it comes to jumping, for those of you who've played all the Souls games, you know that there's different types of jumping. There's the Elden Ring jump, and then there's like the Dark Souls jump, where you run and then you press a button like after you run to do a jump, which could be what's going on here. It looks like this could be like a jump more similar to Souls as opposed to Elden Ring. I'm gonna be honest, jumping in Elden Ring is a good mechanic, but it is not a core mechanics to the Souls genre. I think we can all agree that the jumping aspect of Elden Ring is nice and plays nice. It's one of the good additions that Elden Ring made, but it does not really take away from the gameplay of any other Souls. In a sense that these other Souls games, gameplay-wise, are pretty much on par, if not better in some aspects, where Elden Ring is better in some other aspects. But as a general package, it does not make or break combat. A game is not going to be bad if it doesn't have jumping, is what I'm getting at. And we know that for a fact because we've played throughout all the Souls series. And the jumping is great in Elden Ring, and it's a good addition, but it doesn't make or break combat. But here we see a jump. All of this to say that we see a jump here. We just don't know if it's a jump after sprinting, which means that it's only going to be used like sparingly here, like going off of cliffs or like all off small ledges, or if it's an actual neutral jump like in Elden Ring, for instance. We don't know what type of jump this is, but we know that jumping is there. We clearly see it here. So jumping, making a comeback, and then also we see, I think, all the little items that you can pick up. So this is definitely it. I think we can also see this is a plunge, or is it? It is a plunge. So you see a plunge attack. Like I said, it's hard to see at 30 FPS, motion blur, everything. YouTube compression, you know, the whole package, but that's a quick look at a plunge attack. The alleged plunge, yes, pretty much. We get to see a lot of these like unique type of attacks that would be similar to what Ash of Wars are in Elden Ring and Weapon Arts in Dark Souls 3. This is quite interesting. They're putting a lot of emphasis on that. See here, like that. That looks like another one. Okay, we get a... Let's take a look at the next frame afterward. We get to take a look at the visceral. So the visceral attack here. Over the top, I love it. That visceral reminds me a bit of what Bluepoint did with Demon Souls Remake. I think that was one of the cool things in Demon Souls Remake. The visceral were really good looking. It's just that in the Demon Souls Remake, they kind of fucked up a little bit with their visceral because they gave visceral attacks like not enough iframes for what they originally had in the main game that they remade. And so you had guaranteed wake up after visceral, but you know, that's another topic entirely. Bluepoint fuck it up, but that has nothing to do with what we're watching. But I mean, it's not overly long. It's just kind of normal length, maybe a bit more lengthy than what I'm used to. It could be wrong on that too, though. It's actually hard to say in slow motion. Let's watch it in real time. Oh, maybe not, dude. That looks fairly fast. It's because we're watching it in slow motion. It's hard to tell. In real time, this is very fast, actually. It looks pretty good. Oh, wow. I would say it looks pretty good, honestly. As good as it can be, really. And we're being a bit overly critical here. Oh, yeah. Timing-wise, I mean, that's it, really. Timing-wise, I am not going to criticize that. To me, it looks on point timing-wise for a visceral. Like there's a sweet spot, I feel like, where you have like something that looks very visceral, and on the other hand it's practical because it doesn't take too long. I think that they nailed that middle ground here. From a naked eye point of view, I think it looks great. Also, one thing that I don't think I've seen anywhere is like, appreciate that you have your weapon, your bow on your back, and your shield, and so your entire loadout shows up on your character on your back. This is something we don't really see in Souls games, and it's something that I'm modding in my own Skyrim game, because base Skyrim doesn't have that. It removes your weapon, but being able to see the loadout you have on your character's back, I feel like it's such an important like immersion feature. It's something that I actually really like and enjoy, and I feel like this is an important part of displaying your character, is displaying the gear you have equipped on your character. And I feel like people don't appreciate that enough. Like, it's such a cool feature. So I'm really liking the fact that the gear, your loadout, actually shows up on your character's back. It's something that I can actually really appreciate. Also, he gets shot by an arrow, but there's no stagger. I think the arrow goes through him. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, the arrow goes through him. So to me, that indicates that this you are in invincibility frames while you are performing a critical, just like Souls. So no surprise there, but I believe we just get confirmation in that same frame that we do have invincibility frames in visceral attacks. Yeah, iframes during animations. Yeah, this is pretty much confirmation of that. Okay, so next frame, we're taking a look at some sort of spell. You charge it, and then boom, you make everything explode. Interesting. It could be problematic in PvP, although the animation is fairly long. Maybe not necessarily. Nah, I don't know. It's hard to tell. Dark Souls games are a lot less pew-pew than Elden Ring, because Elden Ring has a lot of pew-pew attacks that have perfect tracking, which means that you are absolutely forced to time a dodge to get away from them. Like, let's take, for instance, Lightning Bolt, or Lightning Strike, is it called? Thunderbolt, my bad. Thunderbolt in Elden Ring, for instance, is something that has perfect tracking and you are forced to roll it. And so that's not a problem in a 1v1. But when you're fighting multiple people, it becomes very problematic. So at the moment you have asymmetrical gameplay where the game introduces a 1v2 or a 1v3, that becomes extremely problematic, and you don't want attack to have perfect tracking like that. And so, like, what we're seeing here, we're trying to determine if this is the case here, but it's too hard to tell, really. I have to admit, guys, this character looks absolutely amazing. This reminds me a bit of Casca in Berserk. Well, I mean, obviously, no representation has been close to this. Like, this is in UE5. We've never really seen a realistic version, but this is what I would picture for a realistic version of Casca in Berserk, or something similar to that. I love it, by the way. This is fantastic artistic work. Beautiful work from the artists here. Absolutely beautiful. Oh, let's take a look at that, though. You see, this is what could be a magnet effect. I don't know. It's hard to say. There's not enough distance to really say for sure. It's hard to say, guys. It's hard to say, man. I cannot confirm or deny if it's in the game or not. This could be it right here. Like, again, this magnet effect would be a distance compensation to reach your target when you're locked on. Like here, like you see the step, like take a look at the step that the character is doing. Starts from here and then lunges forward. But it's not enough of a lunge forward to say that there's a distance and spacing compensation. Like I said, it's too hard to tell from this trailer because a lot of these shots, a lot of these clips are already in close range. So it's really, to me, it's impossible to tell if it's in or not from just watching this. Because that could just be the base animation of the weapon, and it always has that step and travel distance. And it would be very likely because that distance is not very large. Like for Elden Ring has a ton of animation that have this sort of distance. Surely it's not just forward momentum. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's too hard to tell from just this. Like, we're trying to get as much information as we can, as much confirmation on mechanics that we can from this trailer. But at the end of the day, it's very difficult to get some of this information just from blurry, very quick clips like this. Double dagger, some little spin, but it's like one spin that encompasses both attacks. Also, by the way, I really like the animation for that particular sword swing. It has a very wide arc, some good forward momentum. Like PvP wise, this would be like a useful or a usable attack. Like attack wise, like this looks like a good attack. I like it. Like everything about it looks nice. Same here. Like this 2-hit attack, like half spin type of motion. These look like good attacks. These look like, to me, like this looks like a balanced attack. This looks very usable. Want to be very careful when I say balance, but so far I'm liking and I'm feeling positive about these attack animations. So we're trying to be very critical here for that trailer, but I'm liking what I'm seeing for the attack animations so far. You have to be honest with what you see. These attack animations look very good. Fire Surge here. Fire Surge, always a bad thing. For those of you who did not play Dark Souls 3 and only played Elden Ring, Fire Surge in Dark Souls 3 in particular was actually one of the strongest spell in the game, and arguably was, if I would make a tier list that encompasses the spells as well, like Fire Surge would be on the same tier as like Crossbow and Curved Sword and even Murky, and I'm not even joking. Like in Dark Souls 3, there's 2 spells that are absolutely broken. There's Soul Mass and there's Fire Surge. And good players did not really use much of Soul Mass and Fire Surge, not because it was not strong, but because it was so brain deadly strong and did not really require any spacing, that good players never really gravitated toward that. But you know, in my time playing Dark Souls 3, my 6 years, throughout all my tournaments and all my time playing pretty much all the top players on all platforms, I can guarantee you that Fire Surge was absolutely a top tier spell in that game, and to a point where I would qualify it as completely broken. And so I'm not necessarily happy to see Fire Surge here in that trailer. To me, Fire Surge was not a good mechanic. But with that being said, Fire Surge in Elden Ring is done right, where it's not powerful enough to be problematic. And so I'd much rather have a Fire Surge from Elden Ring than a Fire Surge from Dark Souls 3. So here I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. We don't see the startup of the Fire Surge, and we don't see the recovery of the Fire Surge. The problem with the Fire Surge in Dark Souls 3 is that the startup was extremely fast and the recovery was non-existent. And so you could just do quick Fire Surge and then dodge away. Quick Fire Surge, dodge away. Hit your Corvian, I know, right? We don't really get to see the startup nor the end. It gets interrupted here. So we can't really criticize it from that trailer here, but I just wanted to give it a piece of my experience with Fire Surge so that people get an idea of what could be problematic with something like Fire Surge. Yep, little javelin troll. Looks like he has only 1 spear, so it looks like it's probably like a special attack. Some sort of Ash of War. Because it looks like he only has 1 spear. It's not like double spear or anything. So you see the dodge at last second. To me, that seems to indicate that dodging is frame 1, just like in Souls. Which, I mean, we kind of take for granted, but I feel like this is more obvious in that frame. We also get to take a look at the lock-on tracking, which is very subtle. It's a very subtle thing looking at the lock-on tracking, because lock-on tracking always looks at your target directly, but there's some small differences between each Souls game. And those small differences actually facilitate backstabs. When the lock-on tracking is not instant, it makes it possible to pivot backstab. And so when I'm looking at something like this, for instance, maybe not this one, not this one, but like this here, see the tracking here? I'm not gonna draw any conclusion from that, but I just want you guys to notice the time it takes for the character to turn here. You know, it's just an interesting detail. That little turn here. And we really see the blade well here. And that's a halberd, okay. I think they showcase a lot of their bosses and what they do. And they look dynamic, which is a good thing. It's probably one of the hardest things studios would have to... Like, one of the hardest thing for other studios to make a From Software game would probably have to do with the enemies and the bosses. That's hard stuff to do, you know, from the rigging to the animating these different attacks. Like, you can't mocap a boss. Like, you can motion capture an attack animation from a humanoid character, from like a walk animation, a run animation. You can motion capture all that stuff, but when you have these weird, maybe not this one, but when you have these big weird bosses, you cannot motion capture animations for these weird big things. You have to animate it by hand. You have to rig all that stuff. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of difficult work. But so far, I mean, I like the way these boss look. They look very dynamic. I personally would like to see more of like the normal moveset. That's what I would be interested in seeing. But for a first gameplay trailer, I think this is great. We see a lot. Like, there is a lot of sequence in there, a lot of interesting things to look at. And I'm really liking what I'm seeing so far. We're being very critical. We're being fair, though. We're being very fair and critical. And so far, I would say my outlook on this is very positive. We take a lot of things for granted that have been shown here to be, like, confirmed. Like, a lot of things seem to be pretty much in line with what Souls games usually do. Speaking of attack animations, you know, stuff that's important. Attack animations, dodge animations, or dodge frames, that sort of stuff. It looks pretty in line, or even visceral timing, that sort of stuff. Stuff that we take for granted in pretty much Souls games because it's from the same studio, but you should not really take for granted for other studios trying to emulate Souls. So yeah. So far, outlook is looking very positive for this, and I'm not even talking about the visual presentation of it all, which is looking absolutely out of this world. It's fantastic. The enemy design, you know, the artistic direction. I thought that this game was too much of a copy of Souls and Bloodborne in some of the first trailer they released, but I don't feel that at all from watching this. So I think it was more like the impression they gave in their first trailer. Maybe they wanted people to associate it with Souls, but here it really looks like this game has its own identity. Like, you look at this and you don't think that this game looks like it's made by From Software, not just because of UE5, but the direction here, it still has its own like aesthetic blueprint, I would say. Like, it's a bit more of like it's a bit more emo and gothic than what From Software usually does. Like, even Bloodborne, it has a very Victorian feel to it. And that this does not have that Victorian feel. This is just really straight up gore, horror, gothic. Also, is that 2 greatswords? Or 2 curved greatswords? Let's see. No, it's not. It's like you put the weapon on the back and then you do some weird attack with a ghost blade of some sort. Interesting. So it might even be an ability. I'm not even sure. Because, like, if you take a look at this sequence here, the character does not have 2 blades, okay? He puts this weapon on his back and then starts this animation with this ghost blade from thin air. And so that leads me to believe this might be an ability and not necessarily something, or a spell, yeah, like a spell, and not necessarily something that's related to the weapon he's using. Like an ability or a spell, and not an Ash of War or a weapon art for the weapon, because he puts the weapon on his back when he does it. Unlocked, roll. This is unlocked gameplay. Let's take a look at that. This is a sequence of unlocked gameplay. Let's watch it in real time, actually. Yeah, it's some sort of like jump attack that he does after. Oh, it all happens so quickly when you watch it in real time. Very fluid looking. This whole sequence, like, it looks very fluid. I'm liking what I'm seeing. Looks good though. Yeah, I think we're very positive so far. Yeah, this is looking good. I'm actually really excited for this. Even more, I think this trailer gets me more excited for this game than I was. It's looking great, honestly. Wow, okay. And also, let's not forget about that. This is, you know, it's one of the rare times where the pre-order bonus is actually good news, because the pre-order bonus kind of confirms that you're gonna have weapon shaders, which is a really cool thing to have. This is not like unimmersive. This is not outside of the lore friendliness. All of these, this whole color palette fits the games. This is not fluorescent pink. All of this fits the color theme of these Souls-like games. So I really like the look of this. I'm looking forward to the customization that comes with it. Very positive about Lords of the Fallen reboot. All right, well, that's gonna be it for the trailer analysis. Not too bad. We did an hour analysis for 4 minutes of trailer. I hope you guys enjoyed this analysis. Let's take a look at some interviews. Yeah, like I said, this is a reboot. It's not even made by the same studio. It's the same publisher, but it's a new developer. And the game includes a character creator, co-op. Friends can pop in and out at any time. Oh, that's really good though. That sounds like the PC mod. So it looks like it's gonna function, like, from the sound of this interview. Co-op, when they mention like friends can pop in and out at any time, that does seem like seamless co-op, which is how games should be made, let's be honest. There's a reason why seamless co-op is so popular for Elden Ring. It's because From Software should have done this in the first place. So we get character creator, co-op, drop in and out, PvP, and a faster combat system. So PvP is confirmed, co-op is confirmed, good co-op is confirmed in a sense that you can drop in and out, so you can play the whole game with your friends, like, without like interruptions. I feel like this seems like this is what it's describing. So this is actually extremely good news. Really interested about this. Seamless is dope. It even fixes PC latency issues. Yeah, the port for Elden Ring on PC was really bad, let's be honest. The Lords of the Fallen will also feature crossplay multiplayer and host of other features. Earlier today, CI Game updated their Steam wishlist page, which features gorgeous new screenshots accompanying lore. So there is confirmation of crossplay too. Wow, that is huge, guys. That's actually huge. So you basically want to play on PC. If it has crossplay, I'm assuming that the PC version is going to be polished. And you'll likely want to play on PC. Why? Because PC usually has slightly more responsive controls than consoles. For most games at least. And also if you have a good PC rig, that's usually an advantage. So crossplay is confirmed for this. PC for cheat engine, yeah. That's something I don't like. Let's see what they have for to deal with cheaters. Let's see about that. That's the least of my worry, to be honest, because to be quite frank, like, From Software games are already plagued with cheaters. Consoles will probably be 30 FPS. The old gen, not PS5 and Xbox One X. No, these will be 60 FPS, not 30. Old gen will be 30. We did learn a lot of very interesting information. We analyzed the trailer quite well. I noticed a lot of good things. I think so far my outlook on the game is very positive. There's a few things here and there that I have question marks about. But, you know, the fact that we have PvP confirmation, drop in and out co-op confirmation, crossplay confirmation, this is all good thing. The crossplay means that we're going to have a lot of activity. So that's very good alone, and Xbox players are jumping for joy because usually there's not many Xbox players, so for them the activity is going to be tenfold. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks everyone for coming by. I hope you guys are looking forward to this game as well. The release date is October... when is it? October 13. So it's actually not that far, man. It's looking like Armored Core dropping 25th of August. You know, we have time to play Armored Core, enjoy it, and then we get something to look forward right after. We get Lord of the Fallen right after Armored Core, like a few months after. This is actually great. We're gonna, like, the hype for Armored Core is going to die down, and we're gonna jump in and into another hype train right after. Actually, really good timing for us as well, because it's not overlapping with Armored Core. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for today. We're going to call it here. That was our analysis of the Lord of the Fallen gameplay trailer. Have a good the rest of the day, everyone.